This is Paul David Thompson, and you're listening to the S.M.E. Stories podcast.
You are now listening to the next great small business podcast. Welcome to the S.M.E. Stories podcast, where it is all about small businesses in Canada. And here's your host, Ken Alfred.
Hey everybody, we got a great episode today with Paul David Thompson of Windcore Invest. Now a little bit about Paul himself. He is actually a #1 best-selling author, real estate investor, providing investing insights for real estate. Now a little bit about Paul himself. Now, he has 17 years of experience in the technology and information system industry. During that time, he worked for 4 Fortune 500 companies as a computer engineer, staff manager, and director of engineering. In 2017, he retired from corporate America to focus all of his attention on real estate investments. He's been involved in actually over 500 real estate transactions. Now, he enjoys applying the experience he got from corporate environment towards the real estate investment business that he has right now. In terms of education, he actually comes in with an engineering and business management background. He enjoys creating value by using the discipline of an engineer while combating effective leadership to build a strong team and streamline business processes. Now, he's been on a bunch of different real estate podcasts, and he actually owns his own podcast called the Ready Investor One, where they teach mindset and mechanics of real estate investing. He also manages a real estate mastermind community called My Freedom Foundry, where he helps investors forge their personal and financial freedom. In addition to owning his own rental properties, his current real estate business practice includes hard money lending and a newly founded land development company in Texas. Now, he's lived in Little Rock, Arkansas for 22 years, happily married since 2005 with 2 children, and he spends most of the time out of his home office managing his business portfolio. So we're going to be focusing on the real estate investment side again today, and I think Paul is going to have a great story, so sit back and absorb. Anyways, back to this here. So you talked about the real estate industry, the real estate investment industry. What are some common misconceptions if you meet someone that's, maybe either never heard of real estate investment and they're like, then you tell them, oh, I invest in real estate. They're like, what do they have any like preconceived notions?
Yeah, probably the most common preconceived notion that I know people have is that when they think of real estate investing, they think of like the one type of asset class. And they don't think about the fact that the real estate industry is vast. I mean, there's single family, there's multifamily, and within commercial, I can't even imagine how many different disciplines there are, which I'm not an expert in, right? And even within each, let's just take single family, for example, there's probably 12 to 15 different specialties within single family rentals alone that you can get into. And so it's a big industry, and it's a big, I find people are either all in or all out. People are not like, oh, well, I'm open to it, but I just haven't learned enough. Now most people are like, I'm never going to do it, or like, I'm all in.
Right.
That's what I find.
Right. They say, I'm never going to do it, or I'm all in, which is a bit scary because at least you would like to think about, because I think for all of us who work a regular 9 to 5, during the COVID times, you get that virtual tap on the shoulder that we could be gone, right? And a lot of the cases, unless you punch out your boss, usually are something that is above your pay grade and you really have no control on it. But when you're running a successful business like Paul, is that if for some reason he's struggling in terms of he can't find deals or his properties aren't cash flowing, there's kind of only one person you kind of look at for that, right? You're like, okay, what did I do? Right. Yep. Versus when you work a 9 to 5, you can blame some other people. But it's interesting how that's the case, where it's like either they don't want to do it, or I would always like to think you would always be at least neutral to be like, oh, tell me more about it.
Maybe.
Right?
And there's probably people like that. I just, those people don't say anything. The people who do say anything say something really positive or really negative. It seems to never be in between.
Yes.
So one thing I'll add to that is anybody who's listening to this, you're adding to your knowledge base. You're curious and you want to figure out something new or different to do and make a change in your life. And there's a fundamental principle that I think we should all take to heart. And that's that we should all become owners of equity in either a REIT like you've done, or their own real estate projects, or owning the public sector with stocks, or you're starting your own business. You want to build, buy, or create equity. Because if you're always relying on income that you're getting from either your own company or from where you work, that income is going to find a way to not show up one day. And whether, not really your plan, you might get sick, something might happen to you to take care of a sick one. So you want to eliminate the need for your exchange for hourly wages to cover your basic needs. And the only way I know to do that is to own equity that then pays you. So you want your money working for you instead of your hours working for you, because our hours are finite. And we're never getting more of them. Our lifespan is what it's going to be, unless something really major changes that we don't know yet, which is possible. But as for the technology we have now in our lifetimes, more than likely, our lifespans are pretty much estimated and probably pretty accurate.
We all have an expiry date.
Yeah, we all have an expiration date, right? So we have a fixed amount of time, and we give it away so easily and so readily. And if you think about, it's really important for you to figure out what your value of your time is right now. And you already do it, you just don't know it. I always suggest to go calculate it. Most people work 40 hours a week-ish, and they work 50 hours a week-ish. So that's 2,000 hours a week. And so pretty much if you make $100 an hour, whether it's Canadian or US, doesn't matter, $100 an hour, you are making $200,000 a year, roughly, right? This is a little metric we can all use very quickly. And so that's the value of your time, is $100 an hour. And that's if you're making 200 grand a year. So go make that calculation and figure out that anything that I can spend my time doing that I can delegate out to somebody else and then use that available time to go make more money at that hourly rate is something I should delegate out. And that's when you're running your own business, that's how you should be thinking. Because when you start, it's probably just you and you have a whole bunch of ideas and you wear every hat and you need to go replace yourself in all these different disciplines as soon as possible, so that you can extract yourself from the operations so that you are actually a business owner and not being owned by the business.
I really like that phrase, being business owner versus being owned by the business, because I think for a lot of people, they just focus on, I wonder if it's more of a trust issue where they have a hard time sometimes delegating, especially if this is their baby, right? Like, so this, whatever business they're starting, they're just like, this is me. And I don't know if can I trust this person to do what I do? But I always say that, if you find the right kind of people, they might be able to make your business even better. If they buy into your vision of what you're looking to do, they come up with some stuff that you never even thought of, and then suddenly takes your business from, 5-figure clients to 6-figure clients. Who knows? Whatever the case may be. So I think it should be,
Just think of all the people that you know about that are just world class at what they do, and they're the who's who, and you know who they are. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, a professional athlete, whatever. They're not doing everything in their life. Like, they're not thinking only I can cook my burger as well as I can cook my burger. Like, only, like, there's just no way, right? They're not saying that I do the books better than anybody else, so I'm not going to let anybody else do my books for me. Absolutely not. I mean, they are masters at using other people's talents towards their vision. And we can take some insight from that. Like, we're probably not naturally Elon Musk, who is besides Elon Musk, but we can take principles from successful business owners that have some sort of idea that they have a product or service that they're going to provide to the world, and they're going to find their customer, and they're going to provide extreme value in that, whatever that widget or service is. And then just become amazingly at delivering that service. And you find the thing that you are best at, that only you can do. And everything else you should be delegating effectively out to other people, even if it's a third-party contractor, like editing this podcast. Ken and I aren't spending all day editing these podcasts. We have people who are really good at editing podcasts doing that for us.
Absolutely, because I tried doing it myself, and then you start to get your like you said, back to time. I would take longer to edit it because I'm like, oh, I got to cut this out, got to cut that out. And I was like, okay, let me give it to someone who says they can, they can figure out a way to do it. And then, or if there's like a technical issue in the middle of a recording, which has happened in the past. Oh yeah. I want to spend hours trying to figure that out, or just send it to someone who can do it. And, I think I found the right person, and they're working through it. And, I pay them reasonably well because, it's something that I would rather have that time to either be with my family or to grow,
exactly.
my podcast, right? That's the way I would look at it. So interesting. So we'll talk about, so one thing I wanted to ask you about here. So what has been your biggest failure, but also your biggest success so far?
The biggest success that I had, and I go back to failures, is that I finally got started. Is that I actually pulled the trigger and bought my first investment property and launched my business. Like I actually got off the starting blocks. And the failure that I would say I had, I probably have a couple, but the one of them that jumps to mind right away is that it took me 15 years to start that and make that decision. I wished and I dreamt and I fantasized and I never did anything about it. I would even read and study about, the different, I went and got an MBA. All that was just spinning my wheels towards not really any specific goal of accomplishing anything. And then once I actually started buying properties, one of the biggest mistakes that I made was I was slow to effectively delegate. And what I mean by that is I would delegate, but then I would just, instead of actually delegating, I would abdicate responsibility. I would just say, hey, property manager, or hey, assistant, take care of this, and just kind of figure it out. And when I would just tell them to just figure it out, they obviously didn't do a good job because they had no vision behind what the task was, right? Like I didn't want to be bogged down by those details. And so I've had to learn very much how to be good at giving somebody a specific task, recording a Loom video of how I did it, and going over that thing perhaps 3 to 5 times before they actually get it and do it 70 to 80% as well as I want them to do it. And that's probably okay.
Good to know. Good to know. So that's a very interesting part here. So, hey, do you need an error-free website? Do you need transcription that's accurate and on time? Would you like to remove noise from your video or audio recording? Do you need a spokesperson for your business? If so, we can help. At Northway Capital Group, we are happy to announce that we are now providing website testing services, audio transcriptions, and audio cleanup, as well as spokesperson services. We would love to help you on your next project. Contact us for more information at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com.
Now it's time for tips from the pro.
We got our tips from the pro segment here. So these are the ones where it's very specific. Some listeners who have also been reaching out on certain questions.
Nice.
And so now we have the expert here to answer some of those questions. So question number 1. So for rehabbing a unit, what are the best cost-saving strategies to avoid over-renovation? Because I think a lot of people, they watch those fix and flip shows and, they'll just try to, they'll go crazy with the granite countertops and the gold stuff. How do you best solve that?
So with the issue of over renovating a property, especially if it's going to be a rental and not a flip project, if you're just renting it out, you got to recognize what the fit and finish is of that type of product in that market is. So one of the best ways I find to do that is to go, secret shop 2 or 3 other properties that are similar to yours and look at what that actually looks like. And you probably want to do this yourself in person the first few times, but then after you've seen a few, you can just do it online and kind of get a sense of what it is. But you want to see, what kind of countertops, what kind of fixtures do they have? What kind of light fixtures are they using? What are the paint colors? And more times than not, in a rental grade property, it's not the high end granite. It's not luxury vinyl tile. It's not the luxury units. It's functional. It's reasonable, but it's not crummy looking, but it's construction grade. Like when I put granite into even my flips, a lot of time I'm using construction grade granite, which probably doesn't meet up to the HGTV standards, but I'm not flipping HGTV houses, right? I mean, I'm in, Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm not in LA. It's a different world. So, and what you think about it is, am I going to get another return on investment by doing the fit or the finish that is 2 clicks up from that construction grade granite? I'm not going to sell that house for $30,000 more because I put the extra $10,000 into that higher grade granite. If I just do the basic granite, they don't know what the other options were. It looks fine. It's going to sell for the market value of that property.
Yeah. And if it's the person that's actually looking for it is that picky, well, they're not going to be the right person for you anyways. They're not going to offer your unit anyways, right? So the people that, like you said, they just want a place to live that's comfortable. Right. They're not going to be that nitpicky over those things, right?
Agreed.
Yeah. So, all right, next question. What is the best source to find a deal? So, a lot of people will just go on in the MLS or something like that, or one of those services. How do you find your kind of deals, or how would you expect someone who's just starting? Where should they start with?
Well, and this is, I would say, my specialty, because what you first get into real estate and what you first think is, well, I'm going to go to these public listing places. And when we refer to that as on-market properties, they're listed by an agent, and you're probably going to pay the market rate for that property. Whereas what we do is we go what they call off-market. I mean, we're not opposed to on-market deals, but we just know that most of our deals won't come from on-market. Most of our deals come from off-market, which means they haven't listed it for sale yet, or they've listed it like on Zillow for sale by owner, or it's been poorly advertised with a very sad-looking sign in the front yard, right? So they're not real good at marketing, or they have some sort of circumstances in their life where they haven't decided to sell yet, and we want to get their attention before anybody else has gotten their attention. And I'm at scale, even for apartments now. I'm sending out anywhere from 5 to 10 offers on apartment complexes. And when I was doing single families at scale, I am the phrase I say is like, you're going to kiss a lot of princes before you find your frog. Like, you don't want to buy or meet that house that is in perfect condition, because they're not going to sell at a discount. And that's where I can find equity in this business, is buying high value real estate at a discount. Sometimes 10, 20, as low as 30% off, because the circumstances of that property or the seller is such that time is more important than getting the most they can for the property. And one of the biggest mistakes people make in any sort of business is they think the other side is negotiating for the interest that you would value. So value is subjective. You don't know what they want until you talk to them.
Exactly. And I think what people have to understand too is that when you're talking about off-market deals for sale by owners, I know some people have this concern of like, oh, you're just trying to cheap out on paying anything for these people who are struggling and blah, blah, blah. But 90% of the properties, people would say, why don't you just go to a realtor and post it on there?
Sure.
And there's a good portion that will follow that normal process, but the problem is the properties that we're talking about here are the ones where, whether it's death, divorce, or job loss, or something where they're just having a hard times, where when they try to, I'm sure they've already tried talking to a realtor, and the realtor might have said, okay, well, we got to pay X amount for staging here. You got to renovate this. You got to change this. You got to do all this sort of stuff, where the people could just be like, I don't have the money to do all that, and I don't have the time for all that. And then you have people like, and you have people like Paul who are saying, here, let me take this off your hands. What will you be happy with? So that at least that's one less thing you have to worry about.
Pretty much.
The money I'm going to give you, and you can start your life over again.
Move on with life. I use that saying all the time. Hey, we can get this done right now. Like, we can close in 2 weeks with these circumstances, and we can close. Like, you can just move on with life, and all the problems that you've been just complaining about, I'll take care of. And what's interesting is the same principle applies to buying businesses. So I know a lot of the people in this podcast aren't just real estate people. All these same principles apply to in fact, maybe even apply better, because even fewer people know how to buy a small business. And in the US, there's a really strong financing set up from the Small Business Administration, and you can get an SBA loan, and probably something similar in Canada, I don't know, where you can get an SBA loan, which are very competitive business rates, like interest rates, and you can buy the older people's properties. Like the silver wave is right now is retiring like crazy, and there's going to be a huge transfer of value of wealth from the baby boomers to the next generations. And we're probably at the stage, people listening to this, probably at the stage in their lives where they could step in and buy a business. It could be real estate related, or it could be just anything else, a business related, some sort of business where there's cash flow already there. And you can have the cash flow of the business pay back either owner financing or the SBA type loan.
Yeah. And that's something to even think about too, right? Because I think a lot of people just think, I have to start from scratch.
Right.
You don't necessarily have to start from scratch, right? So, I mean, because you could, like, if you can save money and buy a McDonald's franchise or one of the Starbucks franchise, I don't know if that's the case. You will have to have a lot of capital for that, but at least it's something that's already ready-made, right? But if you have something as well, like you said, these small businesses that have been running for years.
Plumbers, an HVAC system, like
laundromats,
a laundromat, exactly.
Coin-operated car washes, something like, look into the details. Now the question, though, this is going to be related to both real estate and small business. What are the red flags when you are trying to purchase a property or a business? What do you see?
Well, what are you doing is you're buying cash flow. Like fundamentally, whether you're buying rental property or you're buying one of these existing businesses, is you're buying a given income stream. And so you want to see the books from the seller. And so you put the property or the business under contract, subject to due diligence. So in the situation of real estate, you're going to do a physical inspection of the property. In the case of a business, you're going to do an inspection of the books. And you're going to really understand what they're doing, because you're going to request and require to see their tax returns, because you're buying an income stream. And this is, like the fundamentals of what you're doing when you're buying a stock is you're buying a little piece of the business, and you're looking at what is the potential value of that stock in the future. You're doing the same thing with a small business. You're just getting into the nuts and bolts and running the actual business versus just buying the stock.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that's very interesting to hear, because I think, and especially too, for all the listeners out there, just because it's a low price does not necessarily mean it's a good deal. And I think Paul can echo that statement, right? Yeah. Because there could be a reason why because the books could be fake for all you know, right? This is profiting at least $100K a year.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's one of the best lessons that Charlie Munger actually taught Warren Buffett. Is, Warren Buffett used to buy things at value. He'd buy these like terrible properties but Charlie Munger convinced him to start buying reasonable properties at reasonable prices, because he wanted a property that had the longevity or an asset, a business that had the possibility of making cash flow for many years, versus Berkshire Hathaway itself was a terrible investment when it came down to it, because it was a textiles firm that was imploding, but they bought it for super cheap. And they keep that name to remind them of that lesson, actually.
Wow. Excellent. So, all right, next question from another listener is, what are some, reasonable tips to get a steady deal flow? I guess, especially because if and we'll have the analogy of, let's say you make $70K a year. So the idea, let's say for real estate, is you want to try to find something that'll at least replace your $70K a year.
Yep.
So now, however properties you need to purchase or whatever, that's going to be another number. But in terms of that though, Paul, how do you maintain a steady deal flow so you still have a good amount of stuff coming in where you don't feel like you have to get another property because it's lower because you don't have anything, and you can really sift through it? So how do you do that?
So when you're first getting started, like, this is probably the hardest thing to learn. Once you do it for a while, deals just kind of naturally come to you over a while because of your network. And so what you're doing is you're increasing your surface area of luck. So I can't necessarily give you an exact set of tasks that I can guarantee you that you'll get a deal in the next 3 months. But I can tell you that if you don't make any offers in the next 3 months, you can almost be certain you're not going to get any deals. Right? So let's do like reverse thinking. Okay, so obviously I have to make offers to get deals. So let's be in the business of making offers. And most people get very wrapped around the axle and kind of confused about where am I going to get the money, where I don't know how to do this. And like all those things get in the way of you making offers, so you never do anything. And so my story to you is, the way you find opportunity is that you make offers and see which one sticks. And you'll make 10, 15, 20, maybe 100 offers and only get 1 or 2 deals. And that's just the nature of the business. Like, you're going to have to go out there. And like I say a lot, is you kiss a lot of princes to find your frog. And sooner or later, when you get out there and make enough offers, an opportunity will bubble up. You're like, oh, okay, this one's actually starting to like shake out. Like the numbers actually seem to work. The seller seems open to the offer and we're having a conversation and open dialogue. And once you get better at doing that, you get better at recognizing when the right deal is the right deal. At first, you don't know. So go make offers. And if anything is keeping you from making an offer, like, I'm not sure how to raise the money, I'm not sure how to use the paperwork, I'm not sure how, whatever hinders your task becomes your task.
Exactly. So interesting. Next question that I got here from another listener says, okay, so I'm afraid of talking to people. Should I look into getting a wholesale? Should I work with a wholesaler or a bird dog to get these off-market deals?
Good question. So super good question. So some people just will not be the outside salesperson that's going to go make offers. That's fine. If you're not going to be that person, or you just don't have the time to be that person, you're going to have to use something else at your disposal to buy those deals. So you'll be buying those deals at a little bit of a premium over what the wholesaler has found, but you're going to pay for it. But that's fine. I'm very happy to pay an agent that brings me a deal. I'm very happy to buy a wholesaler an assignment fee if they bring me a deal, because they did the work to bring me a deal. Now I'm still going to go through my same due diligence, but it's no problem at all to buy properties from a third party. The first 20 properties I bought were from a wholesaler.
Yeah, and right off the market too, right? Because like you said, you didn't go to one of those, for sale, like like you said, those public sites that are on the market, right? These are the off market ones. And those are the ones that will give you that opportunity versus going to, in Canada here, the MLS and just, oh, here's all the houses there or all the apartments that are for sale that I can just buy. Because like you said, you're paying for a premium for that.
Yeah.
All right. Next question here. So this is about property management though. So what are the red flags that I should, when I'm interviewing a property manager?
So you want to make sure that their contracts are written in such a way, like your property management agreement is written in such a way that favors both you and them. Meaning that you want to be able to exit the agreement if they don't perform. I personally got into a situation where I've been working with an agent for a few years as a listing agent, and she started doing property management. I thought, well, yeah, we're good buddies now. Like we've been doing business together. I'm sure she did a great job doing property management. I didn't really ask a lot of questions, and whatever paperwork she sent me, I just kind of signed it because it was the state contract for our state. That state contract is written by realtors for realtors. That is not in any way incentivized to protect me from them at all.
Right.
So she held me to this contract when she was doing a deplorable job renting the properties. To the point of gross negligence. And I really had no recourse because there was nothing in the contract that protected me from it. So always read those contracts, make sure that the structure that they set up is such that it aligns incentives as much as possible so that they're not getting incentivized for turning the properties a lot. Because as a owner of property, you want the property to turn over as little as possible. The biggest expense is it going vacant and you having to fix it up again. And you want your tenants to stay there forever.
Right. And so let me ask you this question. This is the question I have now. So would you look at for someone who's new, would you go for more of a bigger name property management firm, or would you try some smaller property management firms that, let's say, are new or they're smaller?
Good question. So it fundamentally depends on the performance of the person that you're going to be working with, whether it's a big company or if it's a small company. I think you could find good property managers in both scenarios. But I want them to feel I want them to answer my questions with confidence that this is how they're going to handle certain things. I have a couple of properties in a smaller market that it's just one lady. She has no employees and she does a great job. And I have another property manager in another state that they're a huge firm. They manage thousands of units and they're seem to be world class. And I'm concerned about the extremes at both cases. Do you have enough bandwidth to handle my properties? Or two, do you have enough? Do you have too many properties to where my properties aren't worth it to you? So both answers can be right.
Yep. Paul, you there?
I am.
Okay, sorry about that. Just cut off.
I think we had a little bit of an issue.
Yep.
So what you're wanting from your rental properties or from your property managers for your rental properties is that they're taking good care of the property and their behavior and their incentives are aligned with what you want.
All right. Excellent there. It's a good thing. So you said that fine mushy middle where there's not too little properties that they manage or too many properties to manage. You want to find that really one that's going to be, and who's also very responsive. I think that's also one of the most important things, because otherwise you don't want calls or emails coming to you for some reason.
Correct.
Right. So last question I have here on this one here. I've heard of multiple exit strategies, but isn't the only exit strategy like, okay, if I have a property, I can either rent it out or I can sell it. If for some reason it goes, I'm struggling with it. So I've heard of other people using multiple different types of strategies. What type of strategies have you heard of, or have you practiced as well?
Yeah, I've done probably all of them. So in a single family space, and I experimented to see which ones I like the best. In the single family space, there are kind of more options available to you because you can sell it to someone who's going to live in it, and you can sell it on like a lease option, or you can sell it all cash, or you can sell it owner financing. If you are going to sell it to an investor, those same options exist. But then an investor has a little different, purpose behind buying the property because they're buying an income stream versus a property to use for themselves. So you have many of the similar concepts in the commercial space, but in the commercial space, you don't have this concept of somebody's who's going to move in it and live in it and be their own. Like you're only, as an investor of commercial property, you're only selling to other investors, right? So some of the options kind of get eliminated in that case, but there's tons of variety. What's most common or that's different from just selling or renting it is this combination of both, which is referred to as a master lease or a lease option, where and this is very common in the commercial space, where you offer to lease the property to somebody who's going to run their business inside of it, and then they have the option, the right to buy it from you at a future price 5 years from now, for example. And that's referred to as a lease with the option to buy later.
Or I think in some places, I think in the residential side, it's like the rent to own
same idea.
Kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Rent to own is effectively a lease option. Yeah. Paperwork. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. And good to know. Didn't know that is. So last question we have on the tips before we get to the fun stuff here is, what is your best strategy on dealing with whether it's different clients, different sellers, difficult clients, difficult sellers, or difficult staff?
Well, I'll cover difficult sellers. And oftentimes difficult sellers are like, you still want to deal with them sometimes. Like with a difficult employee, you just this is probably not going to work out. You need to move on kind of thing. Whereas with a difficult seller, if they're difficult with you, they're difficult with everybody. And it's possible that they're difficult because they're dealing with their own emotional issues that you don't know about. And if you're can remain calm and not get overly excited about whatever they're getting excited about, you might be able to work a deal that nobody else was able to.
Interesting. Yeah. Or another tip, just keep buying from wholesalers. So we don't have to deal with that in a way.
Yeah, but, it can help. What's interesting with buying with wholesalers, most wholesalers don't know what they're doing. They're very inexperienced. That's why they're wholesaling, because they don't have any cash. And oftentimes I step into a wholesaler's contract and I end up having to say, I'm going to pay your assignment fee, but you're messing this up. Like let the grown up in the room be the grown up in the room and handle things. And occasionally that happens with agents because they may be new and they just don't know how to handle this situation. And sometimes you gotta be careful about it because there's egos involved. So you have to kind of say I think I can talk to the seller and we can all be there together. And I'll tell the agent or the wholesalers, do not talk while we're in this room. I've done this before and it feels like maybe this is kind of a newer one to you. How about I play the bad cop and you'll play the good cop later. So the good cop doesn't talk during this conversation.
Interesting. I didn't even think about that, but okay.
Now it's time for the rapid fire round.
All right. So now we're in the rapid fire round now. Look at this. This hour's flying by really quickly already.
Let's do it.
So let's do it. So, all right. Question number 1, rapid fire round. What would the 15-year-old self be thinking you'd be doing right now?
Not anything I'm doing now. My 15-year-old self would have thought that I would have been working at a company forever and trying to hide and do as little as possible.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. Best real estate book that's not your own.
A single best real estate book is The ABCs of Real Estate by Ken McElroy.
Oh, I heard that's a good one. I think that's on my to-read list. All right. Next question. What is something you hate, but you wish you really loved? So it could be something popular. I use the example. My wife loves to play Wordle. I have no clue how to play that. My kids love durian fruit. I've tried it. I don't like it. They still want me to keep trying. But is there anything about yourself that you'd be like, I really don't like it, but I kind of wish I did?
I don't like bananas, but I wish I did. That's like the perfect fruit.
Really?
They come in their own package. I have, and they're like they're like the perfect thing, right? And they're nutritious. They keep for a long time. They're cheap, but I just can't stand them.
Oh man, bananas. That's the first time I've heard of that, but okay. Excellent. What is your biggest time waster or your guilty pleasure?
YouTube, easy, hands down. I get pulled into YouTube.
All right. What's the I would say the funniest thing that you would see on YouTube that people would be surprised at? Oh, you watch that?
Table tennis.
Well, for whatever reason.
Table tennis.
Table tennis.
Yeah.
I could see that. That's a very tough game, actually.
I love it. I if I could have gone pro in table tennis, I would have. But the U.S. is just, for some reason, it just cannot play table tennis compared to the world. It's kind of like football or soccer. We can't play it. So I don't know.
Yeah, like I like watching stuff that is just mind numbing that you don't really learn anything for, just because. Especially if you've been using your brain all day and you just want to just watch something that's like
brain candy. Yeah,
brain candy. Then some of it's like watching a pressure washing video of something dirty turning into really clean.
I've got another one for you because you're being so honest with me. I got another one for you. Is chiropractic adjustments. It's
crack addicts.
I'm a crack addict. An ASMR crack addict. Like it is something so calming about someone. You say, okay, it's time. Deep breath in, crack, and I'm like, oh, that would feel so good right now.
And the funny thing too is because Paul also does a podcast like myself, so we notice when you start to see like people with actual microphones around the patient when they're actually doing that. Because I did watch a lot of those crack addict videos. I go to a chiropractor as well, so I mean I enjoy when they're manipulating and working your head, and my head hasn't fallen off yet, and my spine is still there. So yes, I can totally relate to that. All right. Next question here: what is the worst sequel movie you've ever seen?
So I'm going to say the Star Wars trilogies and episodes 7, 8, and 9. I'll just refer to that collectively as a series that just did a terrible job of having like such good source material and like an iconic concept, and they just ruined it. They did a terrible job. Disney got a hold of it and ruined it.
Oh, damn you, Disney. But yeah, I'll say mine too, which I think some listeners know, is Mortal Kombat 2. If you remember the original Mortal Kombat movie in 1995, that was the one. I was a teenager. I remember that was the first movie that I went to the theaters twice to watch it because I really enjoyed it. But then when the second one came out, like only a fourth of the cast actually showed back for it. And they left the first movie as like a cliffhanger. And then you're looking at the second movie, you're like, those people don't look anything like. Where are the people? Where are the people that I think one person came back and that was it. I'm like, that's it? Everyone else, I don't know who they are. And it was, I think critics hated the movie. Same with me. Anyways. All right. I always ask this to all my guests. If you can create your own sandwich, what would be on it? What would it be called?
What would it be called? So I have actually thought about this. I like to cook. In Italy, they have this, these like thin pieces of like focaccia bread, and they have all these like spreads and all these like deli meats on it, like you can only really kind of find in Italy. And I would make some combination of that. I have to do some experimentation, but it doesn't look that appetizing. But when you eat these sandwiches, you're like, what has been gone wrong in my life where I haven't been eating these sandwiches my entire life?
Oh my goodness! And what would you call it?
The Italian? No, I don't know. The Italian job.
The Italian job. Put on a shirt. All right. Last question I got on this one. I always ask this to all my guests. What is your theme song and why? So you're walking down the street there, Paul. That song hits. People know Paul.
Eye of the Tiger. You ever heard
Eye of the Tiger?
Yeah. One of the first speeches I ever did, they opened up with Eye of the Tiger, and I thought, man, this would be the best theme song right here.
Love it.
Excellent. Yeah, I was like talking about getting some energy and being ready to like light some people up. Yeah, I was ready to go.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So, all right. So any last final question any last final advice you would give to anyone, whether they want to get into real estate investment or even just starting their own business?
Yes. You are thinking about something right now. Something that you have heard in this conversation has made you think, you know what? I should be doing that. Writing a book, starting your own podcast, starting your own business, quitting your job, whatever that thing came to mind in your life, don't let that sneak by because life gets in the way. Like your intuition was talking, and go do it.
Yeah, exactly. So great advice there. So where can people reach out to you, Paul, whether it's to pick your brain or want to work with you? How do they contact you?
The best place to find me is on my website, pauldavidthompson.com. I have the curse of a common name, so I use all three of them. And I'm at the same name on most anywhere on social media, Paul David Thompson.
Perfect. And you want to talk about your book too? Promote your book?
Sure. Yeah. I wrote a book a few years ago that talked about my story of escaping my day job. It's called Escape Your Money Mindset to Freedom. And it was basically kind of a background story of how I used the same thoughts we talked about today to kind of have my wake up call moment and change my life by starting my own business. And I kind of walk you through what some of the exercises I did to figure out why the business makes sense for you. And it isn't a real estate book. It's a book about the different choices you make. And whether it's investing in public stocks or real estate or your own business, you need to go buy equity.
Excellent. All right. I'll make sure to put that in the show notes. So, all right, Paul, thank you for being on the podcast. It was awesome.
Yeah, great job. Thanks for having me.
Hey, you, do you need a voiceover? Well, look no farther. Northway Capital Group has your answer. Commercials and explainer videos, AVR and voicemail, health and wellness, corporate training and e-learning, announcements, documentaries, and biography. Contact us on social media or email us at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to the S.M.E Stories podcast, which is owned by Northway Capital Group. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Northway Capital Group.